Exactly 1 year ago, we reported that migrant smuggling had gone from a tertiary criminal economy to a major revenue stream for some of the region's most powerful organized crime groups. How quickly things have changed. Shortly after President Donald Trump was inaugurated in January, he transformed the migration landscape, hollowing out the asylum system, stripping protections from many migrant groups, and accelerating deportations. As a result, the flourishing criminal economy built around migrant smuggling dried up. This week, we examine and explain that phenomenon, diving into an article from our signature GameChangers series, which spotlights the biggest shifts in organized crime across Latin America. And 2025 isn't just any year. It marks 10 years of our GameChangers annual roundups. A decade of data, reporting, and fieldwork gives us a sharper lens to see not just this year's transformative shifts, but the long arc that brought us here. This is Migration Smuggling Market Goes From Boom to Bust, written by Sam Woolston and Victoria Dittmar, and read by me, Liza Schmidt. The number of migrants traveling through Latin America to the United States plummeted in 2025 and sent organized crime groups scrambling to plug a multi-billion-dollar hole in their profits. Between February and October 2025, U.S. authorities encountered an average of 9,620 people per month on the southern border with Mexico, a 92% drop from the average 123,202 monthly encounters recorded during the same period of 2024, according to data from the U.S. Customs and Border Protection. Countries serving as migration corridors to the United States also recorded dramatic declines in migrant numbers. Between May and September 2025, Panamanian authorities recorded just 78 people crossing the Darien Gap, a treacherous stretch of jungle on the Colombia-Panama border. This marks a stark contrast with previous years, especially during 2022 and 2023, when the region had served as a major staging ground where tens of thousands of migrants funneled every month onto clandestine trails, tightly controlled and taxed by criminal groups. The abrupt turnaround is the result of major policy changes in the United States. In the first year of his second term, President Donald Trump gutted the country's asylum programs, rescinded the protected status of many migrant groups, and ramped up deportations. The administration also detained thousands of suspected undocumented migrants, removing some without trial to a, quote, terrorist confinement center in El Salvador, a high-security prison notorious for human rights abuses. The policies have brought a crashing halt to a near-decade-long criminal boom that transformed human smuggling from a small-time racket into a multi-billion-dollar enterprise. Profits were so big they pulled in even the largest criminal groups. By 2021, human smuggling was generating as much as $13 billion for organized crime in the region, according to estimates from the Department of Homeland Security. Insight Crime's own investigations have reached similar conclusions, finding that in many border areas, the migrant smuggling economy rivaled the profits of the drug trade during that period. As these revenues dry up, criminal groups are facing a financial reckoning. From mom and pop to criminal powerhouses. The first signs that migration could become a burgeoning criminal enterprise emerged around 10 years ago in Colombia. Colombian authorities detained 1,111 undocumented migrants transiting the country in the first 3 months of 2015, about double the number from the same period in 2014. The numbers were tiny in comparison to what was to come, but the nationalities of the travelers attracted the attention of the authorities. While the majority were Cubans, people also came from African and Asian countries, including Afghanistan, Bangladesh, India, and Somalia. The internationalization of U.S.-bound migrants in Latin America was driven in part by tougher border restrictions in Europe that pushed some to look towards the United States. This initial uptick in migration remained, at best, a fringe interest of the region's criminal groups. Migrants had long proved attractive targets for robberies and kidnappings, but early revenues from these rackets remained small. The criminal economy linked to human smuggling in Colombia was pegged at just $5 million per year in 2016 by one estimate, a fraction of the profits from the country's drug trade. However, the human smuggling market started to grow, driven by an increase in the demand for these services combined with measures deployed by law enforcement agencies to stamp out flows. The number of people fleeing Venezuela surged in 2018, for example, as insecurity spiked and the country sank ever deeper into an economic crisis. The first move for most Venezuelan migrants was to cross the border into Colombia, where members of criminal groups, including Tren de Aragua, awaited them on international bridges and tucked away on clandestine border trails, offering them services that sought to profit from the growing hardship in the country. Some Venezuelans headed for the United States, though most remained in Latin America, making it to Peru, Chile, and Argentina. Tren de Aragua followed its migrant country folk in the region and developed a knack for trapping them. Young women and girls were frequently forced into prostitution rings to pay off, quote, debts to the group. Meanwhile, Mexico and Central America further militarized their borders after the first Trump administration leaned hard on southern neighbors to stop migrants from reaching the United States. But as the journey became more treacherous, the need for human smugglers' services surged, and the prices they charged for safe passage through Mexico doubled. Two policies enacted by the first Trump administration created the context for a further boom in criminal revenues. The migrant protection protocols obliged people to remain in Mexico while waiting for their asylum applications to be processed, and Title 42 effectively closed the border, citing public health concerns around the COVID-19 pandemic. Both policies increased the vulnerability of migrants, who became sitting ducks for large and small criminal groups in Mexico that ratcheted up extortion and kidnapping operations. Ransoms ranged from $1,000 to $10,000, and many migrants were victimized repeatedly after making fruitless attempts to cross into the United States, only to be expelled back into Mexico. The reopening of the region after the deadliest period of COVID-19 triggered a further surge in the number of people looking to migrate. In 2023, the number of, quote, migrant encounters at the U.S. southern border peaked at over 2.4 million, and criminal groups developed new strategies to profit from the surge. As criminal groups industrialized their exploitation of undocumented migration, they also expanded their reach into legal economies that supported the trade. On the Venezuela border, Tren de Aragua opened low-cost migrant lodging on the Colombia-Venezuela border called pagadiarios. In Sonora, smuggling operators sold a variety of goods to their customers, from camouflage boots to bedding and pillows. In the Darien Gap, the Gaitanistas offered packages of varying levels of comfort, minting as much as $100 million from migrants in 2024. This is all gone now. In October, U.S. and Customs Border Protection released numbers indicating that irregular crossings on the U.S.-Mexico border had plummeted, reaching a 55-year low. Smaller flows, higher stakes. Despite the sharp drop in the number of migrants traveling to the United States, criminal groups continue to look for ways to exploit what remains of this criminal market to offset lost profits. On the one hand, there are still a few migrants traveling north, according to Insight Crime interviews with experts in Panama and Mexican border cities. This indicates that a minimal smuggling economy continues to operate in the Darien Gap and throughout Central America. On the U.S.-Mexico border, however, smuggling services have become more sophisticated to evade heightened surveillance, and may include air travel, forged documents, or routes that are less visible and more dangerous. You could say these are a sort of VIP packages for migrants who have the resources to afford them, said a migration official in the Mexican border city of Ciudad Juárez, who spoke on background as they were not authorized to speak publicly on the matter. Some experts estimate costs to cross the border may have doubled or even tripled. The cost to cross from Tijuana was previously around $8,000, and it can now go up to $20,000 to cross through the Sonoran Desert, or even $30,000 to travel via sea, said Manuel Ayala, director of Nómadas Press, a media organization based in Tijuana that focuses on migration reporting. These networks now require greater infrastructure and resources. Higher barriers to entry likely mean that the smuggling economy no longer spills across a wide range of smaller, more predatory criminal actors, as it once did. It also means that fewer migrants are able to afford these services and are either deciding not to make the trip or are making the journey alone without the costly guidance of smugglers. However, this does not mean that other criminal groups have stopped preying on migrants, as migration within Latin America continues, and many people remain stranded in cities along migration routes. By some estimates, there were still around 5,240 migrants in Mexican border cities as of November 2025. There's also a growing trend known as reverse migration, in which people who were detained and deported from the United States, or who decided not to continue their journey due to fear or lack of resources, are now seeking to return to their home countries or to other destinations in the region. More than 14,000 people had made that journey after Trump took office, most of them Venezuelans, heading back from Mexico and Guatemala, and primarily heading towards Colombia and Chile, according to a United Nations report published in August. criminal networks spanning Panama and Colombia have moved to exploit this reverse flow. Many are the same groups that previously profited from migrant transit through the Darien Gap, including the Gaitanistas, and are now offering return trips to Colombia. This was Migration Smuggling Market Goes From Boom to Bust, published December 26, 2025, written by Sam Wolston and Victoria Dittmar, and read by me, Liza Schmidt. This story is part of Insight Crime's year-end GameChangers series, analyzing the biggest trends in organized crime of 2025. You can check out the entire investigation and sign up for our donor-exclusive event discussing the series on our website, insightcrime.org. And to hear more of our audio stories, podcasts, and long-form narrative journalism, follow Insight Crime on Spotify, YouTube, Apple Music, and Amazon Music. Thanks for listening.